I was sitting outside the other day thinking about how wonderful it would be if I could have a cup of coffee and say hello to my incredible podcast listeners. And then this little voice inside of my head thought, why not do that? So, hello. Welcome to the Present and Productive podcast with me, Leva Hendren. This is my first time trying something new out of my comfort zone today of recording a video podcast, which also means like unedited, very live and spontaneous, really fun. Here I am. Welcome to my porch with my coffee, perfectly imperfect. As you can see, if you can see the video, my hair is really frizzy. It's July, and I'm so grateful and honored for your support. It's really fun to be coming into your ears and now into your video today. The purpose of today's podcast episode is to do a mid-year review. It's July 1st, 2022. Oh my gosh, I can hardly believe that that is real. I feel like every week this year, for me at least, has been so full of life and just pregnant with all kinds of activities. And at the same time, I know it's super important to have a mid-year review. When I look back over what's happened in my life and in the lives of so many of my friends and clients, like it's just been incredible, the change that has happened. But it's totally worth taking a beat, a pause, and just getting present with where we are and where we have been. So the purpose of today's episode is to walk you through a mid-year review. I'm doing something very courageous for me, and I will be sharing with you how my goals changed from when I set them January 1st and where they are now, July 1st. I have taken a sneak peek at the changes, and truly some of them are surprising, but that's a little bit of life. So just before we get into the episode, if you are new to the Present and Productive podcast, I am the host, Leva Hendren, and I'm a strategy consultant by day, musician by night, and a lot of weekend work, turned behavior design coach. My focus is on joyful productivity. I believe that when we're truly present and finding joy in our work, that's when we can start loving our dreams into life and find true purposeful productivity, the type of productivity that is life-giving, not the endless treadmill of performance. So thank you for being here. And my goal for today's podcast is by the end, you have a clear line of sight on where you've been. You can celebrate where you've been so far in the year. You feel confident about where you're going for the next half of 2022 and maybe beyond. At least as confident as we can be when life's plans changes. Just before we get started, I have to recognize one of my dearest friends just has had a true miracle, and I know that you'll be listening. I won't say your name, but she had a baby who came early. Such a good reminder about why it's important to be present and productive, because when baby comes early, all of your productivity plans have to go out the window, right? And it's really important to be responsive and adapt when life throws you something really crazy like that. So extra love and prayers going to you today, my friend. Okay, without further ado, let's get started with the mid-year review. So if you've been following the Present and Productive podcast, then you know I'm all about identity-based goals that are flexible and adapt along with you. And that's why when I do a mid-year review, I like to take a lens back and make sure that I'm doing everything in this podcast. I'm preaching to myself and doing along with you, by the way. Feel like I needed to add that in there. So everything in the mid-year review, we want it to be really celebrating where you've been, dropping into where you are now, being really present with where you are now, what life is bringing your way, so that you can find the true authentic threads that are pulling you into the future. And to do that, there were a couple of questions that I asked myself in my mid-year review that I really suggest you asking yourself. So if you have a journal, Present Productive Planner journal, right here, I actually have 3 of them, one for each quarter of the year so far in front of me, literally. If you have a journal, this would be great to bring it out. If you don't, you can just respond or think through these questions in your head. But the first mid-year review question I would love to share with you is, what have you learned thus far? What is the biggest learning? 1, 3, doesn't matter how many, but what have you been learning thus far on 2022? For me, I have really had a lot of surprise learnings on the way. I really took a pause with this podcast and been wanting to reimagine what's the purpose of this podcast, what's the future. And in doing that, I realized it was so much more important to give myself the grace of taking that pause than to just keep pushing and doing the status quo, to really question my own expectations. That was a really big learning. I've also learned a lot about my body. I didn't have any health related goals at the beginning of this year, but I've learned a lot about how to help my body, support my energy, and how to work with the emotional impact of loss and change in my body and my body's physical response to that, which has been really humbling. As a biohacker, really humbling to know that I don't have all the great body health answers, but that was a really amazing learning. And my next reflection question is, what have been the moments of unexpected joy? We can't always control when joy is going to come into the picture. We can set ourselves up for as much joy as possible. What have been those moments of unexpected joy? And I really invite you to relive those moments. Like, close your eyes. If you're not driving, if you're in a safe place, close your eyes, drop into that space, that heart space, and just relive those moments of joy. It's so powerful for you to get clear on what's bringing you joy now. Another example from my personal life, usually watching flowers bloom is like a huge practice of joy for me. And this year, I have to be honest with you, friend, the flowers were not bringing me joy. I planted all these flowers, I cultivated them, I knew they were coming up, and I just wasn't feeling it this year. I had to really dig deep and feel what else was bringing me joy. And a funny learning that I found looking back over the last couple of months is that really dancing more has been bringing me a lot of joy. That's been like my biggest unexpected joy. And then the third mid-year reflection question I really encourage you to think about is, what have been your greatest moments of flow? You might have to get a little bit real about what's taking you away from dropping into flow. If you're looking back and you're thinking, I haven't really gotten into flow as much as I would like. And for those of you who are new, flow refers to that state when you're really engaged, your energy is optimized, and you're totally absorbed in an activity. I had the wonderful privilege of giving a little interactive workshop to some really inspiring art design students, all college freshmen, earlier this year. And we did a deep dive into flow. And we're talking about how powerful those moments are when they can cultivate flow and drop into flow, but also how frustrating it can be. And sometimes we feel like we're getting in our own way, having a little bit of that grind. So always want to water the flowers, the positive, using that metaphor, about thinking what is bringing us flow. And at the same time, that might bring up for you some of your energy depleters or your obstacles towards getting flow. for me, again, leading by example here, I did not get into a great flow in writing outlines for my podcast episodes, which is so funny, but I have been finding a great flow in other types of writing practices. So that was really interesting. And I found that even the format of my writing was really making a big shift. So when I was writing on my computer, it was very hard for me to drop into the flow. When I was writing back in an old-fashioned journal on a big piece of paper, it was really easy to drop into the flow. And I even have been practicing some writing in voice recording formats, which inspired me to reconsider how I'm approaching the podcast, right? So that has been a big flow activity for me. I have a couple of other flow activities, flow workouts, flow time in cultivating friendships. That conversation flow has been so valuable for me. I just encourage you to pause for a moment and think about what activities are really bringing you flow with ease and joy, and what kind of obstacles you might be able to remove in order to get the flow that you're looking for, or even experience deeper, new ways of getting into flow. To recap, those 3 mid-year reflection questions, just in case, going pretty fast. They were first, what have been your big learnings? And definitely celebrate those learnings. I really encourage you to do that. What have been your unexpected harbingers of joy or messengers of joy? Not just the hints of joy, but the real unexpected moments of joy that you're finding now. Just be present with that. And then third, what so far this year has really brought you into that state of flow when you're feeling purposeful, on fire, fully engaged and focused? And the second part of that question is, what have been your energy obstacles? What's been keeping you from flow or depleting your energy that you might be able to change or tweak or learn from going forward? It's a lot. So once you've done that mid-year reflection, really encourage you to celebrate how far you've come. I wrote that in my journal in my mid-year reflection, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much has changed over the last 6 months, and I still can't believe it. But it's hard. It requires taking a beat to really look back and see how far you've come. Now is the time to make goals for the next 3 months. So to give you a sense of how that's looked for me in terms of my changing goals, I'm going back to my first planner of the year. If you're on the video, you can see it. And I'm going to share with you what my 3 quarterly identity goals were back in January. So my first one was disciplined integrity. I really felt a personal calling to be more integrated in terms of making my inner world and outer world align and reflect, just a deeper disciplined integrity. What does that goal look like now? It is more focused on being a wholehearted human. So you can tell that even though both goals are very personal, it's about my personal development, my personal work, the intention has shifted. It's shifted from disciplined, devotional time, from integrity with my words that I use in my mind and my mindset. It's shifted to being a wholehearted human, to embracing my own imperfectness. And I have written here, my why is to live in more embodied integrity, and choose present over perfect. So you can tell how that has shifted a lot, actually, away from discipline. My second goal for the year was being what I called a thought trailblazer, all about making goals fun and kind of silly and memorable. So a thought trailblazer, I tried out some research projects I actually did a master's level course in psychology research, and that was really fascinating, and I'm glad that I did it, and I'm putting that on pause. Don't need to do any more of that for the near future. I explored some other research opportunities, and I really play around with what kind of original research I might want to be doing in the productivity field. Where am I now? Courageous writing. Really shifted from thought leadership and research into writing. As I shared earlier, I found that writing in my journal was bringing me a lot of flow. It was something maybe I had put on the back burner. It really came up. So that's my new focus, and a newly emerged focus for the next 90 days for me. And then my third goal was, I called it joyfully creative in the beginning of the year in January. It was about using social media and reaching out to my network more often. I ended up finding that to be a little prescriptive and getting kind of frustrated with the whole social media train. Sometimes it can feel like a runaway train for me. I'm not very great at social. That's one of my weak areas. So right now for this next quarter, that has become my whole hog summer. I don't know where the term whole hog came from, probably from the idea of like taking a big pig and putting it on the spit and having a big party. But I just want to be doing things where I'm having more fun. So still joyful and creative, but the focus or the strategies are not about social media. They're really about belonging in person. I have such a craving after COVID and everything to be in person, deepening connection, and to just say a full heck yes. If you're okay with cursing, there's another word that goes there. I'm not going to say it though. A heck yes to life, and go kind of above and beyond in saying yes to having fun this summer. Just permission to have fun, to be in person, to be present, and to have that social component of flow, which a lot of us have been missing. I know that I'm not the only one. So to recap today's really exciting video episode, I'm so grateful if you stayed with me this long, because I've never done an episode like this that's totally unedited. So that's really fun. But to recap, we did a mid-year review where first we thought of a couple of reflection questions to really water the great seeds that we've already been planting, thinking about what we've learned so far in the first 6 months of the year, our unexpected moments of joy, our deepest moments of joy, maybe surprising moments, and then focusing on what's been bringing us flow. How can we amplify flow and remove obstacles to finding the flow? Then I walked you through how where my quarterly goals are now for the next quarter. That's July, August, and September, Q3 22, and how they evolved from the goals that I set January 1st. So you can see this whole through line, and it's kind of embarrassing. It feels very vulnerable and revealing to share this, but you can see the whole through line of my life purpose and energy and calling, and how those goals, maybe they've stayed in the same areas, personal development, the podcast and creative work, and then finding community, but the strategies have really shifted, and I'm just embracing that present over perfect 100%. I cannot be more excited about the quarter ahead, and I'm so grateful to be sharing this beautiful journey of pursuing goals and loving our dreams into life with you, my friend. Thank you so much. If you have found meaning in today's episode, I would really love it if you would share it, or just send me a text message, send me a DM, because I'd love to know if you've liked this new format, or if you have any feedback. I'm always about improving, and let me know how I can support you on your journey. Thank you so much.